The OutRun franchise is a great example of a video game that peaked in popularity over everything else and then slowly faded into time. At this moment in history, the arcade classic has been ported to many consoles and systems, and in the past it spawned many spin-off sequels, and they're all great in their own right. But the original game, the OutRun from the 80s, is the game that everybody remembers. And Sega knew they struck gold when they created this masterpiece. However, when the dark time arrived in 2001 with the crash of the Dreamcast, they still had a few tricks up their sleeves. After they announced they would be third party only, in an attempt to save their few and forgotten franchises, they made a deal with Microsoft to create a bunch of exclusives on the original Xbox. In the hopes that it would sell the new console, they created a new Jet Set Radio, Panzer Dragoon, House of the Dead, Crazy Taxi, Toe Jam and Earl, and yes, another OutRun game. But this wasn't a spin-off or anything like that. This is a straight up sequel, OutRun 2. I've always been a fan of OutRun, and when I saw this was on the Xbox, I swooped at the chance like a majestic finch, and I wasn't disappointed. Not only did it have the original arcade style that the old game did, but it had 4 other great modes which are just as fun and way more challenging. And if you're asking yourself how far could you possibly go with creating a driving game? Well, Sega has shown us before that with Crazy Taxi, that it is quite possible to do quite a lot. But I won't get into that yet. Let's just take a look at how much of a sequel this really is. But before I splash into this, I am playing on the OutRun 2006 edition, which comes preloaded with OutRun 2, OutRun 2 Special Edition, and the OutRun 2006 pack. So for the sake of keeping things simple, I will just stick to one game. First up is OutRun mode, which is the classic game mode which has been kept ever since the 80s. Before you play any of the game modes though, you can choose from a list of cars that suits you how you drive, and also a new colour if you're bored of the traditional red. And as always, before you start driving, you get to choose your selection of music. It has the original music that has been remixed into something so much sweeter. And plus, there are some new tunes to listen to. But if you want that old school feel, then you can bang on the original 80s soundtrack too. But enough about your choices. What I want to talk about is the game. And holy crap! This game's presentation is incredible. There is so much to look at when you're constantly on the move. It's really tough to keep your eye on the road. I often forget what it is I'm doing thanks to the scenery, and just like the original game, the landscape constantly changes based on where you go. So there's a lot to see. Although something to point out, if you choose to go left in this mode, it'll give you the easiest tracks to take, but if you choose to go right, it'll make them a lot harder, so you can mix up the difficulties if you want. You have to reach each checkpoint within a certain amount of time or it's game over. If you pass a checkpoint, then your time is increased. This continues until you reach the very end. Also, the controlling of each vehicle is different, but they all handle greatly. It just depends on what you like. Next up is Heart Attack mode. In this mode, you have to pull off a bunch of requested tricks and tasks to impress your girlfriend, who is driving along next to you. The countdown is kept the same from the previous mode, so no changes there, and the car you choose will always feel the same. So all you have to do is focus on the task at hand. Like passing by cars, extra long drifts, don't crash, collect all the coins, hit all the ghosts, stay in a certain spot for a long time, and much more. And depending on how well you do on each task, you'll gain hearts. The more hearts you gain, the more impressed your girlfriend will be, and the higher the score. I spent a lot of time on this mode. It really keeps you on your toes. Plus, it always helps you to practice when making quick decisions while driving, preparing you for harder modes later on. Time attack mode is common in racing and driving games, so I think you can guess what's to be expected here, but I'll go over it anyway. You race with no other cars on the track, making it great to get to know the course. Also, you can race against your past times, or ghosts. This mode is great for those who are really competitive and want the best time possible. Also a great chance to practice your speed without any obstacles. It's the closest you'll ever get to a practice mode in this game. The last two modes are 15 continuous courses and the time attack version of that. Instead of you driving on which path you want to take, you are forced to drive through every single course without getting a game over. This is extremely difficult for newcomers. I would seriously recommend tons of practice before attempting this, but if you manage to pull it off, then you'll be treated to a very enjoyable ride. I know I've mentioned this before, but this really is one of the best looking driving games I've seen in a long time, and this game was made over 10 years ago. Who says you need new technology to make things pretty? You know, after playing this, it really does stick into my head how Sega doesn't mess around with the older IPs, because they still have some amazing potential in the market today. Hell, the Xbox is proof that any IP can be revived with the right frame of mind. It's a shame to see Sega move away from the console market again, but maybe there's a bit of hope that they'll someday return with the games that made us love them for it, or at least publish them on PC. But no matter what happens, you'll always have my support. Long live Sega, and long live the Dreamcast 2. Thank you ever so much for watching all the way through to this point, it really does help. If you wouldn't mind clicking that subscriber button, because there's going to be plenty more on the way, I promise you. And I normally do shoutouts at the end of these things, so here are a couple more. Johnny Ethco, Capture Rapture, and the Drawfee channel. Please check these guys out, they're pretty cool. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.